Well, it's pouring rain again, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Got that one saw up and going. Started rolling into the next set of saws. I didn't put it on video, but this 390 right here is probably worth kind of a, I don't know, commentary. Brought it into my shop, and he said, just make it run. And I'm looking at it, it's got busted fins over here and busted top right here, and then there's some numbers written on top of that cylinder. And those numbers are EX 96 IN 85. So I thought about that for a second, and I'm like, well, it's got decent compression, but not a lot for a 390. Realized that EX is exhaust and that IN is intake. This is a ported saw. So I took the muffler off, looked inside, and it was like artwork in there. Somebody really did a good job. I think I know who it was, because if there's only one person in this area who has the attention to detail like what I saw inside this saw here. So this is the real deal, and it's got time on it. Of course, the muffler mod screen kind of came apart, but I suspect that this saw has copious amount of hours. So I'm curious to see whether or not it'll start again. I let it sit all day, got it fired up, and if it fires, pay attention to the throttle response on this thing. And I'm not going to let it rev out, piss rev out. There's no sense in doing that. But I have a hunch that this was somebody's junk pile build, and I would say this saw falls into the category of a sleeper on a grand scale, because I would suspect that it might well be, if not the fastest cookie cut saw that ever graced my bench. If it's not that saw, it's damn close to it. But let's see if it'll fire. 390 ported. I didn't really let it warm up, but you might get the idea. And trust me when I tell you, it wants to wind out like crazy. Now, I don't do builds like this simply because when you get those kind of RPMs, I imagine this is probably going to be a saw that'll no load out close to 14,000 RPMs, despite what it looks like, just simply because of the port timing numbers and what I saw on the inside of that cylinder. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. But I don't know. I mean, that's a crank and a connecting rod and a set of bearings that were designed for 13,000. And this one here obviously is beat the odds, because not only does it not have all the cooling it should have, but it was obviously an old saw to get go. You know, it was a beater. And someone ported the darn thing anyway. And trust me when I tell you, this thing here will sing. So this was a joy. I enjoyed it. The only thing I really had to do was I pulled the muffler. The exhaust gasket that had come out it was broken, so I had to replace that. But the exhaust port was opened quite a bit. Beautiful work. Step and everything inside there. If guys who understand what a step is will understand what I'm talking about. And I had to go make another gasket to match the opened up intake to the muffler and the opened up exhaust port. So I'm hoping the person who gets it, it runs just as good as it used to. And what a beast. So this is one of those saws that makes you happy. Next saw that's on the bench is one that doesn't. And but I don't like the layout of the saw to work on it. Number one, I'm just not a fan of those air dam style air boxes and stuff like that. I just can't get to this plug easily. It's just a lot of things that just start throwing flags on this saw. So I'm starting out with this one in a bad mood. You think it's going to get any better? So apparently it does not run. That's the gig. So let's just start out by checking some basics and just see what we have as a starting point. I have no idea. I just know that as soon as I took that cover off, I'm like, not liking it. For example, how are you going to get a test on that spark there? You know, there's really nothing to get in there. Nothing to lay it on. So I'm going to do just something goofy like this. It won't pick up in the camera, but it's got okay spark. Not great, but it's got spark. Let's see if it's got compression. Because if we got compression, spark and compression are two of the major things we need, right? Alright, let's just see what it does. Okay, it's settling right there at 150. So it's got good compression. That means the top end's probably fine. So if it's got compression and it's got spark, it needs gas and air, right? And this is the big and, it needs to have a sealed up bottom end. So I would say that the primary compression, and which is really hard to check that other than doing a leak down test, carburetor, fuel supply, those are the things that are possibly keeping this off and running. And timing too. You could have, you know, the flywheel move or something like that. So let's just see if we can get it to fire. Oh, look at that, fire right up. Alright, the runaway train. So it's got a massive air leak somewhere. Now we got to find it. But that's kind of crap. It's like, okay, is the carburetor installed properly? Is the intake boot beat? You know, is the throttle sticking? No, seems like it closes. So then why do we have a runaway saw? Let me see if I can get it fired again. Alright, when I fired down here, it shut it right off. So Let me see if I can fire it up again and see if it's like the, I can see an area behind the carburetor that looks a little suspicious. Let me see if I can get the fire again. Okay. We found our massive air leak. Now we got to figure out what it is. Oh boy. Like I said, this is the kind of saw that bothers me because it's not fun. Let me put this away. This guy did his job. Now the story behind this saw is that it went to a local dealer who couldn't figure it out. And the guy is a person who's watched the channel that happens to be local, and he asked if I would take it on. I said no. He asked again, and I said I really don't want to. He asked again, I said okay, I'll look at it. And see, that's what I should never do. I gotta learn that no is no. Just say no. Because I don't have any parts or experience on these saws at all. I don't even know where to start on these damn things. But I do know I've got a massive air leak on this saw. I also know that it has spark, it has compression, and the bottom end sealed up tight. So we're starting off with some good stuff. And it looks like it's somewhere right behind the carburetor. Hopefully it's not the base gasket or something like that. That's a possibility. Alright, we just use this Husqvarna box. Maybe some of the Husqvarna good stuff will rub off with the saw. Alright. Oh, that don't feel right. Alright, let me see if this will come apart real easy. I don't like the way that carburetor is sitting in there. Alright. It looks like I've got to get down behind this. And it has kind of like steel type configuration to it, you know. And or somebody's told me that a steel mechanic is better than a Husqvarna mechanic. Of course, my first response to that is because you gotta be. I think an Echo mechanic's going to be a better mechanic than a steel mechanic. You gotta give Echo credit for one thing. At least they're consistent with their screws. Same ones, well, for the handle all the way around. Quality of stuff is pretty good. Gotta give credit for that. It looks to me like it's gotta be something over here. Oh, these guys, like a steel. Amazing. Look at that, same screw. Give them credit for that. At least they're making it a little bit easier by using the same screws as many places as possible. I have never ever seen one of these saws before, much less work on one. I have absolutely no idea what I'm getting into. Looks like a rubber bumper. Yeah. So, let me see if I can, the intake boot's just split wide open. The dealer couldn't figure it out because they didn't want to get into it, that's what it is. Let me see if I can get down to where you can see it. Yeah, that's split. Wide open. Let me just take the camera off. So now we gotta figure out how to tear this damn thing apart. And what is it? A steel? I'm sorry, an Echo something. What is it? Echo CS600P. That has a lot of steel-esque kind of things. And now I've got to go find the intake boot for that. Same routing, the spark plug, the same little cover on top like the steels have. Air box out here with that dam with an air intake boot going through.